For 10,000 years, the Skrell Dominion ruled with an iron grip. Their fleet stretched across the void, their technology unmatched, their dominion absolute. Countless species bowed before them, their cultures erased, their histories rewritten to glorify their conquerors. To the Skrell, the galaxy was theirs by right, until the Deathworlders arrived. Humanity came from a world of fire and ice, of predators and disasters, a planet so hostile that no other species could comprehend how intelligent life had survived, let alone thrived. When the first human ships were detected, the Skrell dismissed them as insignificant, a primitive race from a backwater system, unworthy of attention. When their colonies began to spread, the Dominion sent a fleet to remind them of their place. The Skrell admiral had not expected resistance. The battle should have been over in minutes, another lesson written in blood. Instead, his forces were torn apart. The humans fought like no species before them, ruthless, unpredictable, relentless. Skrell war doctrines were built on precision and control, but humans didn't follow rules. Their ships moved erratically, their strategies shifting mid-battle, adapting, learning, outmaneuvering their superior opponents. Skrell warriors, trained to fight by calculations and probabilities, found themselves overwhelmed by sheer aggression. The battle was a disaster. The human fleet, outnumbered and outgunned, should have crumbled. Instead, they annihilated the Skrell forces, leaving only wreckage and burning debris in their wake. It was the first time in recorded history that a Dominion fleet had been utterly destroyed by an inferior power. The Skrell could not comprehend it. The Galactic Council, an assembly of the most powerful races, dismissed it as a fluke. Humanity had simply been lucky. Luck would not save them again. The Skrell doubled their efforts. More fleets were sent. More colonies were attacked. The humans should have crumbled under the weight of a superior enemy. But they didn't. They adapted. They improved. Every battle only made them stronger. Every loss taught them something new. They didn't fight for territory or conquest. They fought to survive, and that made them more dangerous than any species the Skrell had ever encountered. What terrified the Dominion most wasn't humanity's strength. It was their resilience. Skrell soldiers had long believed that breaking an enemy's spirit was as important as breaking their bodies. Humanity did not break. Their fleets returned stronger, faster, deadlier. They rebuilt what was destroyed, learning from every mistake, every battle. For the first time in their history, the Skrell Dominion felt fear. The Deathworlders weren't just a nuisance. They were an existential threat, and the galaxy was beginning to notice. Panic spread through the Dominion. The Skrell had faced rebellions before, had crushed countless uprisings without effort. But this was different. Humanity wasn't fighting for survival. They were fighting to win. Skrell commanders scrambled for new strategies, but nothing worked. Standard fleet tactics failed. Psychological warfare was ineffective. Even their infamous terror campaigns, which had broken so many species before, only hardened humanity's resolve. The Dominion burned human colonies to the ground. The humans built them back stronger. They executed prisoners. The humans rescued theirs. They poisoned planets. The humans adapted and thrived in the aftermath. The war should have ended quickly. Instead, it escalated. For every battle the Skrell won, they lost 2. For every system they reclaimed, they lost 3. The humans didn't fight conventionally. They struck where they weren't expected, disappeared when pursued, and hit back harder than before. The Dominion relied on order. Humanity embraced chaos. But it wasn't just their military tactics that unsettled the galaxy. It was their morality. Other species had been given a choice: submit or die. Humanity was given no such choice. And yet, when they began to turn the tide, they did not mirror the Dominion's cruelty. They did not slaughter the defeated. They did not enslave the conquered. Instead, they liberated. On planets once ruled by Skrell overlords, humanity didn't just drive out the oppressors. They rebuilt what had been lost. They helped repair infrastructure, offered protection to those abandoned by their former masters. Species who had known nothing but servitude found themselves standing alongside their liberators, not as subjects, but as equals. The Skrell could not comprehend it. Mercy was weakness. Restraint was foolishness. Why let enemies live when they could be eradicated? Why uplift the weak when they could be subjugated? It was not how war was fought, but it was how humanity fought. As the Dominion's forces crumbled, their desperation grew. In an act of sheer brutality, they turned to planetary annihilation. If they could not reclaim their empire, they would leave nothing behind. Entire worlds were targeted for extermination, billions sentenced to death in the Dominion's final bid to break humanity's will. The humans didn't hesitate. They intercepted the attacks, engaged in battles that should have been unwinnable, and refused to let innocent lives be erased. Their fleets bled for planets that weren't their own. Their soldiers died for species that had never known freedom. And the galaxy watched. For the first time, they saw a force willing to fight not for power, not for dominance, but for something greater. The Skrell had ruled through fear. Humanity was forging something else entirely. A legend. The Dominion's grip was breaking. The war that was meant to be swift and decisive had turned into a full-scale revolution. And at the heart of it, humanity stood. Not as conquerors, but as the tide that would wash away an empire. The Dominion's final strongholds fell one by one. Systems that had once been bastions of Skrell power now lay abandoned or under human control. The once mighty fleets that had ruled the stars were scattered wreckage drifting in the void. The war was no longer a battle for dominance. It was a question of how long the Skrell could hold out before the inevitable end. Yet, even in their final days, they refused to surrender. They had built their empire on the belief that they were superior, that no force could challenge their right to rule. To admit defeat was unthinkable. To surrender to a species they had dismissed as insignificant was beyond comprehension. So they fought, not for victory, but out of sheer refusal to accept reality. The last of their warlords gathered at their homeworld, calling upon what remained of the once great Dominion armada. Every warship, every soldier, every last resource they could muster was thrown into one final stand. If they were to fall, they would do so on their own terms, in a battle worthy of legend. The human fleet arrived in force. The battle that followed was unlike any the galaxy had seen before. The Dominion's remaining forces fought with the desperation of a dying empire, throwing everything they had at the humans. But desperation was not enough. Their tactics were outdated, their forces exhausted, their weapons no longer the apex of warfare. Against them stood an enemy that had spent years adapting, refining, perfecting the art of war. The humans didn't just win. They dismantled the Dominion's defenses with brutal efficiency. Skrell warships, once symbols of terror, were reduced to debris. The homeworld's orbital stations, once impregnable, fell in hours. The battle, which the Skrell had hoped would be their moment of defiant glory, became their greatest humiliation. The surface braced for the final blow. They had seen what happened to civilizations that defied the Dominion. When the Skrell conquered, they left nothing behind but ruin. They expected humanity to do the same, to land troops, to seize control, to erase their legacy as they had done to so many others. But the assault never came. Instead, humanity broadcast a message to the entire planet. A single, undeniable truth. The war was over. The Dominion was no more. The Skrell could either surrender and stand trial for their atrocities, or they could be left to the mercy of those they had spent centuries oppressing. Panic spread. Surrender was unthinkable. But the alternative was worse. Then, the unthinkable happened. Human ships broke formation, not to attack, but to defend. They intercepted vengeful fleets of former slaves seeking retribution. They shielded fleeing civilians. They secured the planet, not as conquerors, but as protectors. The Skrell were left in stunned silence. They had expected annihilation. Instead, they had been spared. Humanity had rewritten the rules of war. And with their victory, They had reshaped the fate of the galaxy itself. The war was history. The Skrull Dominion, once the unchallenged masters of the galaxy, had fallen. Their fleets were gone, their armies shattered, their leaders dragged before a tribunal to answer for the atrocities they had committed over millennia. The galaxy should have been at peace. But peace was never that simple. Without the Dominion, order crumbled. Entire sectors, once ruled through fear and oppression, found themselves leaderless. Some species, long enslaved, rejoiced at their newfound freedom. Others, conditioned to servitude, struggled to survive without their former masters. Power struggles erupted, old grudges resurfaced, and chaos threatened to fill the void the Skrull had left behind. Humanity did not turn away. They had won a war no one believed was possible, but they refused to abandon the responsibility that came with victory. Across the stars, human ships remained, not as conquerors, but as guardians. They did not dictate terms or establish dominion. They didn't claim territory or force others into submission. Instead, they helped rebuild. On war-torn worlds, human engineers worked alongside newly freed species, restoring infrastructure the Skrull had destroyed in their retreat. Food and medical supplies were distributed, not to the victors, but to those who had suffered the most. Human patrols kept opportunistic warlords at bay, ensuring that no new tyrants rose from the ashes of the old. It defied every expectation. Empires did not act this way. Conquerors did not protect the weak. Victors did not share power. Yet humanity did. Not everyone understood. Many species, scarred by centuries of Dominion rule, waited for the moment humanity's true intentions would be revealed. Surely, they were only pretending to be benevolent. Surely, they would eventually seize control, declare themselves the new rulers of the galaxy. But the moment never came. Instead, humanity extended a hand, not in dominance, but in partnership. They did not seek to replace the Dominion with another empire. They sought something new, a coalition, a union of free species, where strength was not measured by power alone, but by the willingness to stand together. Some resisted, too broken by the past to believe in the future. Others hesitated, unable to trust a force that had proven both terrifying and merciful in equal measure. But many, so many, chose to believe. A new order was born, not through conquest, but through cooperation. Humanity had proven themselves the deadliest force in the known galaxy, but they had also proven themselves something far greater. They had become the keepers of balance, the defenders of those who could not defend themselves. The Skrull had ruled through fear, convinced that their way was the only way. Humanity had shattered that illusion. They had rewritten the course of history, not as conquerors, not as tyrants, but as something the galaxy had never seen before. A force of justice, a force of change, a force that would not be forgotten. The Deathworlders had come, and the galaxy would never be the same.